This is Fancy. She's going to be doing her mock driving test today. So how many hours tuition have you had?
I've had more than 40 hours.
More than 40?
More than 40 hours.
Have you had a test before?
I've had one test before.
How did that go? Well, you're here, so I guess you didn't pass.
Yes.
But what happened?
I made a serious fault on the roundabout, and with that, combined with another fault with junction observation and approach speed. So those were fault in my exam. And
so observations at junctions. The most common cause of failing a driving test, not being careful enough at junctions. So, you ready for your mock test?
I'm ready.
Shall I go and get your examiner?
Yes, please.
Okay. He'll be with you in a moment.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Colin.
Hello.
What would you like me to call you today?
Fancy.
Fancy.
Yes.
Okay. Would you like me to tell you about the test?
Yes.
Well, it's going to be between 38 and 40 minutes. It's going to take into account various road and traffic conditions.
Yeah.
I may ask you to do the emergency stop, and I will ask you to do one manoeuvre. Also, part of the test, you will be following the sat-nav. Mm-hmm. Can I ask you
Yes.
how you would find out the correct tyre pressures for this car and how you would check them?
You find the tire pressures using the car manual or the stickers on the passenger of the driver's seat.
Yeah.
To measure the pressure, use the air pressure gauge, and you should test on all the tires when they're cold.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to start you with the sat-nav. Mm-hmm. Please follow the head unless I say left or right. Also, if road signs or markings direct you otherwise, follow those. Okay. But otherwise, you follow the road ahead.
Okay.
Okay?
Great.
So, ready when you are. Move away when it's safe, please. Fancy isn't pushing the clutch down fully, and therefore the car is not starting. We did check her seating position when she got in the car, and she could press the clutch down fully without stretching.
Is it on? Hold on. Cool.
Would you mind turning the lights on, please?
Yes.
As it's raining. Your examiner may ask you to turn the headlights on when it's raining. Try to do this yourself, but in my experience, this is not marked on the test if the examiner asks you to do it in a situation where it's better to have the headlights on, but not strictly necessary. No blind spot check until after she starts moving. She is not moving much, but it still may be a minor mark for move-off safety. It's good to see her checking the centre and right mirrors before moving to the right to pass the parked cars. End of the road, left.
Left.
No mirror checks before signalling, but she does check them at a more important time, which is just before moving back to the left after passing the parked cars. However, unfortunately, this would likely be a minor mark for mirrors signalling. She did not turn the wheel enough, therefore we are partially on the wrong side of the road with an oncoming car. As the car had to brake for us, this would very likely be a serious mark for control steering and therefore a driving test fail. She should have been more aware of how sharp the turn was on approach. It is possible to turn left here without hitting the curb or going on the wrong side of the road, but it is tight, and if she felt she couldn't make it without using both sides of the road, as the bend is sharp and the road is narrow, using both sides of the road would have been acceptable if she waited until it was safe to do so. As there was a car coming from the left, it was not safe. I'm going to ask her to do the angle start. You will get this on your driving test in Great Britain. And could you pull up before the next car on the left within 1 car length of the car? Don't worry about the driveways on this occasion. Keep going, closer please. Closer, get closer. Bit closer please. That'll do there. Thank you. And move away when it's safe, please. This is the angle start. She rolled back slightly, but not enough to likely be marked on the test. It's best not to have the signal on until you're ready to move, because the signal should not be used as a request to ask cars to wait for you. As there is no one coming, it doesn't matter. She does make the car struggle as she is moving away because she's not using the gas pedal, but in my experience, this has to be done very badly for it to be marked on test. On this occasion, I doubt this would be bad enough. It's good that she continued here as the oncoming car is waiting. Please pull over at the side of the road after the learner car. Fancy is trying to line up with the curb using the side mirror. This works great in reverse, but not so well when going forwards. The front of the car is almost touching the curb, but the back is still sticking out a bit. However, the position is not bad enough to be likely marked on the driving test in Great Britain. Okay, I would like you to reverse park behind the car in front. So pull up alongside the car.
Yep.
And reverse back so that you are close to the curb and finish within 2 car lengths of the car. The parallel park exercise.
Yeah. Okay.
Be aware that you can see a dropped curb outside the front window, but the curb that the wheel is next to is raised. Just going to stop you there because you're about to drive into the pavement.
Yeah.
So if you push the clutch down, take it out of gear, and let me have the controls for a moment, please.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So my car, if you release all the controls,
Yeah.
including the steering wheel, and let me control the car.
Okay.
On a real driving test, the examiner would let the pupil hit the curb and damage the wheels and tyres unless doing so would cause danger. This is one of the many reasons why driving instructors usually only allow pupils to use their car on test if they have taught the pupil and trust that they are ready. I have not taught Fancy and this is not a real test, so I will try my best to prevent damage to my car in the same way that I do on lessons. A damaged tyre can be a blowout at high speed and cause a serious collision. If this was a real test and Fancy did hit the curb, it would be marked as a steering fault. Whether or not it would be minor or serious depends on how badly she hit the curb. If she mounted it and the curb was raised, then it would almost certainly be a serious mark. There we go. I didn't want to damage the tyres of the wheel because you were about to scrape because you turned the wheel to the right.
Yeah.
So now instead of going over the curb, we're going to scrape the side of the wheel and the tyre against that curb there. So I'll go back to character now.
Yeah.
If you can do the manoeuvre, please.
All right.
It's in neutral, handbrake's up,
Okay.
controls are yours again.
Go.
Okay?
Yeah.
If Fancy was about to hit the curb slowly with the tread of the tyre, if it was safe to do so, I would probably let this happen and mark it as either a serious or a minor depending on how hard she hits the curb. But as she was about to pinch the side wall of the tyre and possibly weaken it, I didn't let this happen. As she already has a serious mark for control steering, this wouldn't actually be marked on the test, as a serious mark replaces any minors. So Fancy can't get any more minor marks or serious marks for control steering. Ideally, she should have selected reverse sooner to warn cars behind that we were about to reverse. She checks her left side but not her right side before moving backwards. She should be checking both the left and right blind spot before reversing. She did check the right earlier, but those checks are way too old now. So this would very likely be a minor mark for observations on this manoeuvre. There has been no right blind spot check throughout this manoeuvre so far. By now, this would likely be a serious mark for observations reverse park road. When reversing, you need to look round enough that you notice anyone approaching from any direction before they have a chance to reach you.
Oh my god, I can see your car. Oh, not moving too far away.
Okay, that will do there, thank you.
Oh no.
And please move away when you're ready.
Move away when I'm ready. Okay.
We had already been doing the manoeuvre for about 2.5 minutes and Fancy was reversing back out into the road significantly. It's unlikely an examiner would wait much longer than this unless we were waiting for traffic or the manoeuvre was going well. As the manoeuvre was not completed, this would also be a serious mark for control reverse park road. Fancy keeps checking her blind spot after she has already started moving. On this occasion though, she moves such a small amount, I doubt it would be marked. Next road, left please. This gap is very narrow. 7 miles per hour is slow, but not slow enough considering how close we are to the bin lorry and the curb. We should be walking through this, checking both sides to make sure we don't hit either the curb or the lorry. I think Fancy wants to go slower, but we're in second gear with the clutch up. And in this car, the minimum speed in second gear with the clutch up is 6 to 7 miles per hour. She should have pushed the clutch down to allow herself to go slower. This is where coasting can actually be helpful at very low speeds, where first gear can be too jerky, depending on the car, or second gear is too fast. I was covering the brake in case Fancy was going to hit either the curb or the lorry. This would likely be a minor mark for use of speed. She doesn't check her centre and left mirror before moving back to our half of the road after passing this white small truck. This would likely be a minor mark for mirror's change of direction. End of the road, right please. No mirrors before signalling to the right. This would likely be a minor mark for mirrors signalling. You can't see this on camera, but there are cars approaching. The gap to pull out isn't quite big enough for Fancy to make it, so she waits. That's good, but the pressure gets to her and she pulls out in front of the last car. She had one more car to wait for, and she makes it brake hard enough that it would likely be marked as a serious for observations at junctions on the driving test, which is the most common cause of failing the driving test in Great Britain. Fortunately, the car was polite. They didn't drive close to tell us off. They slowed down and kept a safe distance. Hats off to them. If you could turn the wipers up another click, please. Thank you. We are starting to get closer to the parked cars, but we are slowing down as we do so. Good to see. And if you could turn the rear wiper off, please, by pulling it back towards you. Thank you. This can be quite a hazardous area because the road is narrow and the oncoming cars can block your view of the right side of the zebra crossing. Today though, it's relatively clear and easy to see. Traffic lights left please. No mirrors before signalling again. That will be the third minor for mirrors signalling. A driving examiner is unlikely going to allow more than 5 minors in the same box without it becoming a serious mark. Although you can fail for just 2 minors if they are bad enough minors. Some minor marks are more serious than others. At the traffic lights, please turn right. Good that she cancels her signal due to the road on the right. Bear in mind that cars look further away on my GoPro camera than they actually are. From here though, you can see we won't clear the junction before making the oncoming car brake. Now watch how the bumper of the oncoming car dips as they brake in response to our car, which is about to turn into their path. Did you see that? Now the oncoming car has slowed down, making the situation look better than it was. This would not have been a collision, but that has more to do with the driver of the oncoming car having good anticipation skills and recognizing early the telltale signs that we weren't going to give way. Given where Fancy was looking, it was clear to me that she forgot she needs to give way to oncoming cars when turning right at a green traffic light. Hopefully this will help her learn for the future and prevent this happening when she is on her own. This would be a dangerous mark for Judgement crossing because there was actual danger.
Oh, they override.
So I had to stop the car there because of the oncoming car.
Yeah.
I'm going to give the controls back to you now. I'm coming off the brake.
Yep.
You can move when you're ready.
Oh. I should have given. Wait. Sorry about that.
One of the challenges of making these videos is objects look further away than they are. This can make the unsafe look safe. And pull over at the side of the road just after the bus stop. Don't worry about the yellow line on this occasion.
Oh my god. Too close.
Thank you. I'd now like you to follow the sat-nav. There we go. If you can move away when it's safe and continue to follow the sat-nav.
Great. That's too close now.
She checks her blind spot as she starts moving, and this time she misjudges the car from behind. We make the car slow down. They're doing about 30 miles an hour and have had to halve their speed to about 15 miles an hour by the time they're caught up with us. This would be a minor mark for move of safety and possibly even a serious. You can't hear it on camera, but she did grind the gears. The gear stick was only half in. I pulled it to neutral as soon as possible to minimize damage. A real examiner would not do this as they don't want to intervene unless there is danger, but this is my car and I will prevent damage when I can. Fancy seems to understand what she did wrong and puts it back into gear quickly. This would be a minor mark for control gears, although I think the gear stick didn't go in because the clutch wasn't all the way down. Mini roundabout, sorry, please follow the sat-nav. Mini roundabout right. Sat-nav is not talking to you at the moment though, so that's probably why I felt like I needed to say something. Sound is on. Notice how the engine struggles and nearly stalls as Fancy moves away. This car usually stalls at 500 revs. Now I won't let Fancy damage my car. So
in 200 yards, turn left onto Gujarat Road.
Sat-nav's talking now. So if she does something that may damage it, I will intervene. Like I won't let it hit the curb and I won't let the gears grind. If the gears start grinding, I'll put it in neutral.
Turn left onto Gujarat Road.
Fancy needs to use the gas before lifting the clutch. After this test, I gave Fancy a driving lesson. We did video it and it will be coming soon.
In 200 yards, at the roundabout, continue straight to stay on Gujarat Road.
Fancy passed her real test 10 days after she did this mock test and the lesson. It's
in
left.
50 yards, at the roundabout, take the first exit onto Butt Road, B1026. Turn left onto Layer Road, B1026.
Fancy has been consistently not checking her mirrors before signalling. By now, this would usually become a serious mark for mirrors signalling. Sat-nav can't make up its mind whether or not it wants to give you directions.
Kind of slow a bit.
Continue on Layer Road for half a mile.
When I give a mock test, I err on the side of caution. If it's possible that a real examiner would mark the fault, then I will mark it. Examiners are human and they're not all exactly the same. The DVSA try to keep them the same, but you can't expect around 1,500 people to all have the exact same judgment. I've been sitting in on tests for around about 14 years now, and I base my marks on the harshest assessments I have seen. Not the assessments that I consider incorrect, but the most harsh. If the pupil passes a mock test with me, they're very likely going to pass the real test.
Oh, these are bad ones.
If you could turn the rear wiper off, please. Just pull it back towards you for the rear one. Fancy has immunity for the windscreen wipers.
Yards, turn right onto Boadicea Way.
Yeah, I said she's got immunity for the wipers. I'm going to tell her to do what to do with them because we don't want wiping too much at the front because it will make the video horrendous to view, and the rear wiper is noisy, so we should only use that when we need it. It shouldn't be left on.
Take the next right onto Boadicea Way.
But usually it's your responsibility to do the wipers on test.
Yeah.
Here we shouldn't actually be in the middle. The line for the centre of the road is here but has completely faded. Going into the middle means oncoming cars can't avoid the cycle lane. This used to be a right turn waiting area, but they decided to add this cycle lane and remove the waiting box. However, the lines fade fast and the island in the middle makes it look like a waiting box. I think this is a bad decision from the people who designed the road. This is because it encourages cars to drive head on with each other. I've actually made a video about this junction. I'll leave a link on screen. As there are no road markings and it looks like a waiting area, I won't mark this. Let's hope the oncoming cars don't try to avoid the cycle lane on this occasion. If they do, they will drive straight into us.
In a quarter of a mile, you will arrive at your destination.
Please pull over at the side of the road before the yellow lines. She is struggling to judge the curb because she is looking in her mirror. The mirror will show her the curb, but as she is going forwards, she is looking at the past, not the future. If she goes much further forwards at this angle, we will hit the curb. I'm going to pause the sat-nav now.
Yeah.
Because we're going to do the emergency stop.
Okay.
please only do the emergency stop if I put my hand out and say stop.
Okay.
Don't do it if I don't put my hand out and say stop, because it may be unsafe. You may see me look behind to make sure it's safe as well. Okay?
Okay.
Move away when it's safe, please. Another blind spot check after she starts moving the car. She is moving so little that it's unlikely she would cause any danger, as she can stop if she sees something, and it's unlikely that the amount she moves before checking would cause a collision. Assessing this is a matter of judgment though. If the examiner shares the same opinion as me, they would not fail her for this, but would talk to her about it after the driving test as something she needs to improve. To pass the driving test, you need to be safe and legal. An examiner should only fail you if they believe you are either unsafe or breaking the law. As it's possible that an examiner could mark this as a minor for move off safety, and she is doing it repeatedly throughout the test, she could get a serious for move off safety. So I'm going to mark it as a serious and let her know at the end of the test. Stop. Thank you. I won't ask you to do that again. I would like you to resume following the sat-nav, please. Move away when it's safe. It's hard to judge emergency stops on camera. They can look good, but be soft. This was okay, good reaction, but she could have braked harder. This was likely hard enough to pass the test. However, she is staring in her blind spot when she is planning to move away. This is making the much more important checks of in front and behind old. Yes, you should check the blind spots before moving away after the emergency stop, but not at the expense of being aware of what's in front and behind. This reinforces that the serious mark for move off safety earlier was a good decision. If Fancy has a serious mark for something, I will not mention any minor marks for the same thing if it happens again. Also, any minor marks for the same issue would not be counted at the end of the test, as the serious mark replaces them. She doesn't check her mirrors before going round this truck, and her mirror check to return to her side of the road was late. That's the second minor for mirrors change direction. She already has a serious for mirrors signalling, but mirrors change direction is a different box on the test report form. The sat-nav is saying ahead here, please.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that was...
So please go ahead at this junction.
Okay.
I can't tell her to cancel the signal, but I can remind her of the direction she is supposed to go. Which way are you going at this junction?
Straight ahead.
Good. That will be a minor mark for signals correctly.
Oh,
Turn left onto the commons.
that was my mistake.
Continue for 3/4 of a mile.
The little switch on top of the wipers, if you move it to the left, so it wipes less, thank you. As I've said, I'm going to help Fancy with the wipers because I'm trying to keep the number of wipes down so it's not in the way of the camera unnecessarily. But on your driving test, you have to make sure you keep the window clear of water yourself. Throughout these parked vehicles, she does check her mirrors but doesn't always check them in pairs, misses some, and some were after she started steering. Whether or not you will get a minor mark for missing mirrors when driving around parked vehicles depends on how sharply and how much you need to steer. If you are changing direction really gradually over a long period of time, then it's less likely to be marked. But if you're having to steer more sharply, as she is here, then there is more danger and it would likely be marked. To err on the side of caution, I will mark this as a minor for mirrors change direction. She should check her centre and right mirror before moving to the right, and centre and left mirror before moving to the left, to be aware of cyclists and any other vehicles that may try to pass.
In 300 yards, turn left onto Heath Road. Take the next left onto Heath Road.
Notice how she checks her centre and right mirror before moving to the right to pass these parked vehicles, but only her centre mirror before moving back to the left. She does check the left mirror, but this is after she has started steering. If you can pull over on the left after these two cars, don't worry about the driveways on this occasion. Thank you. Move away when you're ready.
Great. Right. Yeah.
No centre and left mirror before moving back to the left after passing the parked vehicles. She moves back sharp enough that it would likely be a minor mark for mirrors change direction. Good observations at this junction. It's hard to see, but she made sure it was safe before going.
In 50 yards, at the roundabout, continue straight onto Straight Road.
It's good that she went partially over this mini roundabout, as there's not enough space to go fully around it without getting too close to the curb.
In 200 yards, you will arrive at your destination.
This would likely be a minor mark for use of speed. It could even be a serious mark. 18 miles per hour is way too fast to be this close to the van. A door could open or someone could step out from behind it. We are well less than 0.5 meters from the van, so we should be less than 10 miles per hour. Given that the road isn't busy, it may have been a wiser move to give way to the oncoming vehicles.
You have arrived.
Please continue following the sat-nav. This is just a way marker.
Okay.
In a quarter of a mile, turn right onto London Road, A1124. Take the next right onto London Road, A1124. In 300 yards, at the roundabout, take the first exit.
Roundabout. Okay.
This roundabout catches a lot of people out because you don't have to give way as you enter it from this direction.
Exit the roundabout. In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the third exit and stay on Cymbeline Way, A133.
At the next roundabout, you may find it easier to use the right lane. In my experience, staying this slow on this stretch of 60-mile-per-hour road would likely be a minor mark for appropriate speed. She doesn't have to reach 60, there is a roundabout up ahead, but she could go a lot faster than she does. I'm going to come off the brake now. The car is now in your control. This would be a dangerous fault for observations at junctions. When she observed, there was space to go, but by the time she started moving, someone was coming. Her observations got too old, and although she did look as she was moving, she didn't stop, so I had to stop her before it was too late. Good that she checks her centre and left mirror before changing to the left lane on the roundabout.
Exit the roundabout onto Cymbeline Way. Continue on A133 for 1 mile.
You can turn the wipers off fully now. She stays in third gear throughout this road, even though the car is asking for fifth gear. It does depend on how the car is geared, but for this car, at this speed, third gear is too low, and she's in a gear that's too low for a long period of time. So this would likely be a minor mark for control gears. So what would you normally be doing today then?
Be working. So most of I work from home.
Okay.
So during weekdays I'll be working, and other times I'll be studying on my own, doing just extra studies. Yeah.
What do you study?
I study data analytics.
Data
Analytics.
analytics?
Yeah.
Not heard of that. I'll let you concentrate again.
Yep.
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the first exit onto Colnbank Avenue, A133.
It's hard to judge position from the view of the camera, but we are driving over the white lane divider line, making it difficult for the car behind to pass. She did this long enough that it would very likely be a serious mark for position, lane discipline.
Exit the roundabout onto Colnbank Avenue.
We're supposed to go ahead at that roundabout. So
In 300 yards, at Essex Hall roundabout, take the fourth exit and stay on Station Way, A134.
the sat-nav has rerouted, you can follow that.
Okay.
It
So
wants
I have
you to
turn
go
back.
all the way around, yes.
Okay.
Going the wrong way is not a fail on the driving test in Great Britain. It's not even marked, but ignoring directions repeatedly would likely cause the driving test to be terminated. A late signal on approach to the roundabout, but given the situation, it didn't really affect anyone on this occasion, so it's unlikely to be marked. She checks her centre mirror but not her left mirror before changing to the left lane on the roundabout. The left mirror is very important here. As she already has 4 minor marks for mirrors change direction, this would very likely be a serious mark by now. As it's a serious, for the rest of the test, I won't mention any more minor marks for mirrors change direction. She doesn't need to give way here as she has her own filter lane. If there were more cars coming and she waited for no reason, she may get a serious mark for response to road signs and signals. She is driving over the lines though, but she already has a serious mark for lane discipline. This would probably be a minor mark if she didn't already have a serious mark in that box.
In 300 yards, at the roundabout, take the first exit onto Cowdray Avenue, A133.
She is still driving very close to the white lane divider line.
Exit the roundabout onto Cowdray Avenue. Continue on Cowdray Avenue for 1 mile.
Ideally we should be in 4th gear at this speed in this car, but it's not far enough out that it would likely be marked on test. It's better to wait until the car is nearly stationary before selecting 1st gear. Selecting 1st gear at higher speeds can be more stiff because it doesn't want to go into 1st when you're rolling at speed. It's good to see that Fancy is making the most out of the 40 mph speed limit when it's safe to do so.
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the second exit onto St Andrews Avenue, A133.
I use the middle ring.
You can use both lanes to go ahead at this roundabout. If you don't know the area, you won't know this. In Great Britain, an ahead arrow in the right lane doesn't necessarily mean you can use the right lane to go ahead. Confusing, I know, maybe a topic for another video, but on this occasion you can use the right lane to go ahead. It's good that she's choosing the shortest queue. One of the trickier roundabouts in the town. Let's see how she gets on. Good decision. Positioned a little bit right. Good signal, but she cancels it too early.
Exit the roundabout onto St Andrews Avenue. In 300 yards, at the roundabout, take the second exit and stay on St Andrews Avenue, A133.
Okay, straight on.
She prepares the car a little late. Ideally, she should have power before she crosses the line.
Exit the roundabout onto St Andrews Avenue, then your destination will be on the left.
Good awareness to the vehicle behind us as the lanes merge. Okay, continue following the road ahead. That will be the end of the sat-nav now. I'll give you directions.
Okay.
Again, she is making the most out of the 40 mile per hour speed limit when it's safe. There's 2 mini roundabouts. I would like you to go left at both, please.
Left. One.
This is a tricky situation. Overall, she deals with the situation well. She makes sure it is safe before going. However, watch how low the revs drop as she moves away. She nearly stalls the car. She needs to use gas before lifting the clutch up. Left again, please. Mini roundabout left. Second road left. This is the first. And please pull up on the left just after this road. Thank you. That's the end of your test. I'm afraid to say you have not passed. Yeah. I'll let Richard do the debrief with you. Okay?
All right.
Better luck next time.
Yes.
Okay. If you could turn the engine off, please. Thank you. Sarah? So how do you feel that went?
Badly.
Badly?
Yeah, I did a really bad mistake on the roundabout.
Okay. Which one was that? What did you do?
I moved out and there were still cars coming round.
Okay.
So I think I should have waited more on the line before kind of committing to move out. So that was
the mistake you made there, and this is a pattern in your driving, is your observations are badly timed. You look and you go later. So your observations get old. Yeah. And part of it is down to how you're controlling the car as well. Because you've been taught to lift the clutch up and then add power.
And then the power, yeah.
And it's taking you too long to go. The car's not got any oomph.
The car is kind of slow.
It's stalling.
Pulling out, yeah.
It's stalling and then recovering itself. There was one roundabout back there where you did actually stall as you pulled into the roundabout. And then it sort of restarted itself and went. And every time you are moving away, and this probably doesn't come across on camera very well, but the car is
shaking.
And then goes. It's shaking, isn't it?
Yeah.
You need to add power. Now, you said you've had problems in your car, your Fiesta, haven't you?
Yeah.
And you're stalling it a lot.
A lot.
That's because you've got to press the gas before you lift the clutch. Many people are taught to lift clutch first. Yeah. And I even get comments on this channel where people say, why do you teach add gas and lift clutch second? Because that's going to put more strain on the clutch. But the clutch is designed to do that. If you want to move away, you need power. In some cars you get more help than you do in others, but if you want to drive all cars, you need to have the skill of add power, lift clutch. If you decide in your particular car and you know how it works to lift clutch first then add power, that's fair enough. But if you're teaching someone to drive, in my opinion, you've got to teach them how to drive most manual cars, not just the one they're learning in.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go through my assessment of your drive.
Yeah.
You've already seen it, so you know how many minors, how many serious. I did have to use the dual controls twice.
Yeah.
So I think I'll go over those first. Turning right at traffic lights, oncoming car.
I think in my head I thought once it goes right, because when we were crossing it had already gone amber.
Had it? I don't remember it going amber when we crossed, because the car still came, didn't they?
Yeah, it came, and I think I assumed that it was an assumption that the cars on the other side are stopping.
And you have no secondary light there on that one.
Yeah.
So if you're not sure if they turned, you probably want to wait until the oncoming car is stopping.
Is stopping.
Or you know you have time.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, if you were really fast here, we might make it, but I don't know how fast you're going to be, so I'm not going to take chances.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, well, normal pace, we're going to make that car brake. It's quite
That was
dangerous,
close,
so
yeah.
I thought I'd stop you.
That was close, yeah.
And then at the roundabout, I stopped you as well, because you looked, no one was coming, and then you started to go a little bit later, then somebody was coming. So you need to work on your observations, just mostly the timing of it.
Yeah.
And also, if you have better control moving the car, that will help you react to your decisions or act on your decisions better. Like, I can go now, whoom, you go into the roundabout, not a problem, instead of struggling and going really slow in front of traffic as cars coming round. Right, let's try and think back now. Oh yeah, there was the parallel park.
Oh my god, that was horrible.
That wasn't successful, unfortunately, was it? That was, you went towards the curb.
Yeah.
And then you went to take the angle off.
And then I went too much.
But then you kept taking the angle off. In fact, you were putting more angle on the other way and started going back out into the road. And the way that would be done on test is the examiner will give you a certain amount of time. There's no set time limit. They're judging it based on whether or not it looks like you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I was getting to the conclusion there that you don't know what you're doing here. You're going back out into the road. I've given you plenty of time to adjust it and correct it, but it's not happening. So I thought, right, let's call it there. I don't know how much time I gave you, but I think it probably gave you a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
It felt like long enough.
Yeah.
Do you know how to do that maneuver?
I know how to do it, but I don't know it's like just went south.
Yeah.
Because I did that in my test, the previous one actually. I did in the same sport. It's funny because it was the same sport. And it went well. So I think it was more of, because I had already gone back, I could see the curb. And then taking back, I think I went too much.
But what you're doing is you're not straightening the wheel when the car is straight. So I think you need to practice your manoeuvres more. Practice your junctions more. How you observe at junctions.
Yeah.
Because before Fancy did the test, we had a warm-up, and I did actually give her a couple of lifelines.
Yeah.
One of the lifelines was your observations at junctions is not up to scratch. You were looking and then
delaying,
going later, and I was thinking anything could have changed in that time. And also you had one look when there was parked cars and you couldn't really see very well, and because you couldn't see a car, you thought, well, let's go. Not thinking, oh yeah, I can't see a car, but then I can't actually see very well. I need to try and improve my view or look for a bit longer just to make sure there's no cars passing those parked cars that are blocking your views. Or look, yeah, I can't see anything, must be safe to go. Try to take responsibility for what you can't see, not just what you can see.
You're right.
For pulling over at the side of the road, your position is bad. You're pulling the nose in and then stopping.
Not straightening.
And that's why I took control of the car earlier.
Yeah.
Because you were facing the curb. We were about to touch the curb.
Yeah.
And because you then turned to the right to move away, I wasn't 1,000% sure whether or not we'd miss that. And I don't want to risk scraping the side of my wheels and tyres. So I thought, right, I'm just going to reverse you back and then give it back to you. I am almost certain that you would have damaged the tyres there, especially on those curbs. They are bad curbs. I don't want to risk that.
Yeah.
It's important to look after your tyres. If you do damage them on curbs, they can let out, they can blow out when you're at speed. I haven't had a tyre blow out at speed yet when I'm driving, and I think that's mostly down to the fact that I look after them.
Yeah.
You look after your tyres, they'll look after you. If you don't look after them, they could get you killed. You don't want to be doing 70 miles an hour and suddenly your tyre falls apart. It's not just cosmetic and price, it's also safety.
Yeah.
Try to avoid hitting the curb. You think you might hit it, stop, reverse, and then go. Don't risk it.
Yeah.
Anything else? Position. You would have definitely got a serious mark for position
On the road.
on this drive, because when there was 2 lanes,
Yeah.
you were driving with your wheels, your side wheel, when you're in the left lane,
More on the right.
on the right line, sometimes in the right lane slightly. You're not keeping it in your lane.
Yeah.
And there was a time when there was a Nissan Micra behind you waiting to come past, but you were driving in both lanes.
Oh,
you're
my.
mostly in your lane, but you're also a little bit in their lane.
Yeah.
And they actually, I think they went on the wrong side of the road slightly to get past you. And then as they passed you, you sort of drifted to the left as they were passing you.
Yeah.
But when they were in front of you, you drifted back towards them again. And it didn't feel very comfortable to
yeah.
me. I was contemplating whether or not to take the wheel and just make that safe, because we've got 2 moving objects there.
Yeah.
I think we're doing about 30 miles an hour at the time. We never want to be contacting each other, but definitely in that situation.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that is serious I want to bring up? Let's go back through the test in my head, rewind. I'm sure there is other things. You'll know, I would have mentioned it as the drive went on. There was minor things as well, like you're not checking your mirrors when moving in and out for parked cars all the time. Certainly moving in, I saw you weren't checking.
Yeah.
When you move away from the side of the road, you check, and then you start moving, and as you start moving, then you check your blind spot.
Yeah.
You should check before you go, not as you're going.
Yeah.
And also you're signalling to go before you've decided to go.
Okay.
And this is why I teach my pupils to only signal if they're moving away,
Yeah.
if they see something they need to signal for, because what that does is that encourages them to think about what they're seeing, think, right, yeah, there's no one around on this occasion, you know what, I can go about signalling. Or actually there's someone waiting across the road over there, I'll see. It gets them thinking about what they're doing instead of every time just signalling. So you're confusing road users, because cars are coming and you'll put your signal on
and I'm not moving.
And you're not moving, you're just sitting there with your indicator on. And you did move out in front of
the black car. Yeah.
I believe 2 cars I can remember you pulled out in front of when moving away from the side of the road.
Yeah.
Black car as well. You should have let them go first, because you made them slow down.
Yeah.
You moved away from the side of the road. I looked at them, they were quite close. They weren't like dangerous. I'm not using the dual control, but you've definitely made them half their speed. They're doing around about 30 miles an hour, and when they've caught up with you, they've had to slow down to 15.
Yeah.
And I remember a time when you were pulling out of a junction, turning right on the one-way bit near the beginning of the test.
Yeah.
It was quite busy. There was cars coming from the left. The gap between them was that annoying size where if you really got a move on and you're really skilled, you can make it. But if you're a new driver, you should wait.
I should have waited. Okay.
And you waited for all the cars.
And then the last
last car you pulled out in front of it. I was thinking, just got to wait for one more. And they're all exactly the same. And you pulled out in front of the, you just have to wait for that one to go, and it would have been a clear road.
Yeah.
And I would have had more sympathy for you there if it was constantly like that. And I thought, well, you've moved out there, you've made them slow down a bit, but you're not getting an opportunity. But you could see the opportunity coming.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a space after the black car, and I pulled out. I felt that, because by the time I was on the road on the left side, he was literally on my back.
And you accelerated quite quickly as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
Another thing, actually, on the 60 mile per hour road, you were staying in 3rd gear from memory.
I wasn't sure if I was on
all the way down there.
I wasn't quite sure if I was already on the 60 or it was 40. So I remained on this.
But I'm not talking about the speed limit you were doing. I'm talking about the gear you were in for your speed. You were in 3rd gear all the way there. So that is unlikely to be a serious mark on a test. But that would certainly be a minor, because you're in the wrong gear. It's not, the gear's not so wrong that it's making it hard to control the car. The control is still there, but you're not using the appropriate gear. So that would be a minor mark. Okay, so I think I'll end the debrief there. I recommend practicing taking more time at junctions, better observations, better control with moving the car away, better position as well. And when you're pulling over at the side of the road, look forwards, not backwards. Oh, and your manoeuvres as well. I only test you on one, but I don't know the rest. Your emergency stop was okay. It could be better.
Could have done
You could have braked harder than that.
Okay.
There was some left there. I would say you were around about the 85% of what was available to you. On a driving test, I would say for how hard you used the brake there, you would pass. Just about, but much softer than that, they probably wouldn't pass you.
Wow.
Yeah, and look forwards when you're parking, because you're looking at this mirror when you're parking. That's the past, not the future. And that's why whenever you're parking, your nose is coming in, and you're waiting for the curb.
And instead of...
But your front's going to hit, and that's what happens, isn't it? Your front's going to hit the curb at the front. Your front tyre's going to hit the curb at the front. The back, you're angled like that, like this. You're still far away at the back, and you're waiting for the back to come in, but the front's getting there. So that works great when you're reversing. It doesn't work well when you're going forwards. It's also an idea, if you are straight, if you have parked and you are straight, and you go, that's good. That can be just an idea of how far you are from the curb. But that does not work well for most people if you're going forwards and trying to park. You need to look where you're going. It's also worrying. I can see you're not looking where you're going. I can see we're getting closer and closer to the curb at the front, and you're looking backwards. I see a lot of people do that. Once they learn, oh great, I can see the curb in the mirror. Oh wow, I can use that all the time. You want to use it when you're going forward, backwards, not forwards. Another thing people use it for is to judge getting through a narrow gap. But you can only see if you've made it once you've gone through the gap. Because it's the pass, isn't it? So it's not great at the beginning. If you're not sure, you're better off stopping. Okay. So I'll end that here. If you found the video interesting or helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're looking for car insurance, check out the links to Collingwood and Confused in the description. If you're learning to drive and want to insure yourself on somebody else's car, then Collingwood are there for you, because you can do so without affecting the owner's policy, and that takes away a big stress from the owner of that car. Via the link at the moment, there's up to 35% off and a £20 Amazon gift card. If you want to insure your own car, I recommend checking out the link to confused.com, because you fill out one quote form and get loads of quotes back from many insurers to compare who's cheapest. And you can change your car on the quote as many times as you like without having to redo the whole quote, which makes it an easy and useful way of comparing how much it costs to insure different cars. Using the links doesn't cost you anything, but it does support the channel, so thank you very much. Subscribe to get my future videos, and until the next one, cheerio.